Okay, good afternoon, Whalecoin Talk community. Today we have an AMA with CreedDao, and we have Professor Ash here representing the team. So, Professor Ash, before we get started, can you give us a breakdown of the team and what sort of experience does the team have with crypto or in real life, for that matter?
All right, absolutely. I love the fact that y'all played the video before we started. That gives the everybody listening in a good insight of the project. So, my name is Ash. I am based in the UAE. I am one of the co-founders of CreedDao. Regarding the team, we are a core team of 5 members. So Odin, like I mentioned, is the other co-founder. Odin and I, we have known each other for quite some time now. So we have been actively trading for years. But we finally met in person last year, October, at the Crypto Expo in Dubai. And since then, we have been going back and forth, sharing our knowledge and ideas in the crypto space. Uh, we were discussing about what kind of project or what sort of setup we should be starting off with, and we finally decided to develop a DAO because DAOs are more sustainable than other crypto tokens. And I will discuss about this in the project introduction as well. Apart from the two co-founders, we have a fully stacked developer on the team who is based in Canada and who was responsible for the development of the DAO. So having a fully stacked developer on the team gives us a leverage to make sure that if any adjustments or any kind of changes need to be to be adjusted, we can always rely on a core team member to look into it. Apart from the three of us, we also have two other community members who are focusing on the marketing aspect and also handling the community aspect. So it's a five of us on the core team.
Sounds great, and I love the fact that you actually meet up with the team. This is something that I always advise people. If you start a project, if you're going to build something cool, you want to do it with people that you can trust and people you know. So I just off the bat, I love that. So yeah, let's go into the project. Can you give us just a high level overview of the whole ecosystem, and then we can go into the nuts and bolts and dissect everything.
Absolutely. All right. So the creed was born of two significant ideas. The first part is to address the flaws of centralization and to empower decentralization. So that's the focus of the project, to make sure that we do highlight what's wrong with centralization and what sort of aspects need to be let go of to make sure that we are able to move towards a decentralized financial system around the world. And the second part being the DAO itself, which stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, which to me and the team is the epitome of decentralized finance. Because through a DAO, the decision making can be decentralized through proposals and votings to make sure it serves the interest of every investor who is involved with the project. This, of course, is not the case when you look at any traditional way of how business is conducted or how any centralized organization functions. So the purpose of Creed is to what we are trying to achieve is to join forces with other DeFi projects in the space through the governance of the treasury wallet by the holders in our pursuit to empower decentralization. So that's the entire purpose and idea behind Creed.
Yeah, it sounds great, and I love people that want to battle centralization and offer cool projects and DeFi in the DeFi ecosystem. So, you mentioned you're looking at partnering with other projects. Do you have any specific kinds in mind, or is it how will you make that decision?
Right. So to understand how we're going to make a decision on what sort of projects we are going to partner up with, I think it's important to highlight the DAO and how it functions, right? So I'm just going to touch on that and then move on to the aspects and requirements of the criteria that any project needs to meet to for Creed to partner up with them.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. So,
we
sorry
do have.
for jumping the gun here, Prof, but it gets me excited, and sometimes I feel like tokenomics and all that are not as important. It's just going into the nuts and bolts of everything. But yeah, please go ahead. Feel free to interrupt me if I'm derailing. Yeah.
No, man, I'm excited that you're excited about this. So moving on to this, bro. So, like I mentioned, right? So uh, it's first important to define what CreedDao really is. So what CreedDao is, it's a decentralized venture capital system governed by the holders of Creed through a proposal and voting mechanism. The reason I feel it's important to highlight what the DAO is before moving on to the project criteria is it needs to be highlighted that any project or any DeFi project wanting to connect with CreedDao has to be a proposal that is submitted through one of the holders. So at the heart of the CreedDao is its treasury wallet, and how the DAO comes together is through this treasury wallet. So every transaction, buying or selling trade, has a tax of 5%, from which 1% goes to liquidity and 2% goes to marketing, and the other 2% is accumulated in the treasury wallet. Now, the utility of CreedDAO is known as the House of the Creed and is based on the governance of the treasury wallet by the holders. The holders in the House of the Creed are ranked into three categories: the Immortals, the Kings, and the Seekers. So the Immortals are the top 50 holders. The Kings are holders who hold more than 5 million Creed tokens, and the Seekers are those who hold more than 2 million tokens. So the Immortals and Kings, they have proposals and voting rights, which means that they can always submit a proposal on the DAO, which is already uh, which is already developed and available on the creeddao.io website. So Immortals and Kings, the top 50 holders and those holding 5 million or more tokens, can always submit a proposal, and the Kings, the Immortals, and the Seekers together are able to vote on the proposal. And as long as two conditions are met, that is 25% of all holders do vote and 50% of the votes are in favor of the proposed project, the proposal is passed, and then there's a burning mechanism, which I'll come to later. All right, so having understood that the proposals are brought in by the holders themselves, we do, as a community, we do have a criteria or a guideline of what sort of projects that CreedDAO should approach, or what sort of projects we should be expecting to be approached by. So it's important to keep in mind what the purpose behind CreedDAO is. Like I mentioned before, it's to empower decentralization. So ideally, CreedDAO will either approach projects that are fighting against centralization, or are either empowering decentralization by bringing up some utility. For example, the DAO is a utility which supports decentralization and fights centralization. So as long as it's a project that's creating, building, or enhancing any utility which is supporting decentralization, that's another aspect. And the third aspect, or third potential criteria to be able to partner with CreedDAO, would be any project that is working towards a noble cause, let it be towards charity or maybe solving a world problem. So as long as there's a noble cause associated with the project, that's something that CreedDAO would be very interested in. So those are the aspects. I'll just repeat them over. Uh, Fight against centralization, enhancing utility for decentralization, and working or investing towards a noble cause.
Yeah, it sounds super cool to be honest, and I'm glad you mentioned the tiers. Now, for the respective tiers of your DAO holders, is it gonna be a token amount value for those tiers, or is it gonna be sort of like a USD amount that they'll have to hold to have those tiers with the benefits that they bring?
All right, so okay, so that's an interesting question. So as of right now, the pre-sale value per BNB is 1.7 odd million tokens, Creed tokens. So that's the value right now. So how the DAO functions is, uh, at the initial stage, you the DAO operates on the holding category of the number of tokens you're holding. There's no staking or any such requirements involved. So we have three categories. The highest category, which has the maximum rights, are the Immortals, who are the top 50 holders. So regardless of how many tokens they're holding, they can run into millions or whatever amount they run into. The top 50 holders are known as the Immortals, and they have proposals and voting rights, both of them. Then the next category, the second category in the House of the Creed, the Kings, they need to hold 5 million or more tokens. So that's approximately close to 2.8, 2.9 BNB right now. So as long as you're holding that value of BNB at this given moment, and going forward, regardless of the BNB price or what the price of the Creed token is, as long as you're holding this many tokens, you qualify to be ranked as a king. And being ranked as a king, you are ranked as a king in the DAO. You have privileges of proposing and voting as well. And the third category, uh, on the DAO are known as the seekers, who are holding 2 million or more tokens. They have no proposal rights, but they do have voting rights. So, one major factor that differentiates the top 50 holders, those are the immortals and the kings, those holding about 5 million tokens, is though both of them do have proposals and voting rights similarly, the how we differentiate both the categories is on the airdrops of the tokens. So I'm just going to touch on the burning mechanism as well, just to explain how the entire DAO
Mhm. Mhm.
finalizes a proposed project that comes forward. So, like I mentioned, the immortals and kings can propose for a project, and the immortals, kings, seekers together can vote on the proposed project. So, let's suppose the conditions are met, where 25% of all the holders vote, and 50% of the votes are in favor of the proposed project. So, once that criteria is met, what happens is the contract chooses to buy into the proposed project as long as there's enough accumulation of BNB. So this can vary depending on project. It could be 50 BNB, 100 BNB, 200 BNB. So it could depend on the criteria of the approved or accepted investment towards the proposed project. And once that criteria and the BNB accumulation in the treasury wallet is achieved, what happens is 80% of the funds are used to buy back those tokens, and those tokens are airdropped to the holders, to the immortals, kings, and seekers in a ratio of 25% to the top 50 holders, who are the immortals, 50% to the kings, and 25% to the seekers. So that's the main differentiation we have between immortals and kings, although they both have proposals and voting rights as well. Apart from what I just mentioned, the burning mechanism to create DAO. So 80% of the approved funds go towards investing or buying into the proposed project and being airdropped back to the holders. Uh, the balance 20% is used to buy Creed tokens, and they are then burned. So which means that over time the supply reduces and also gives Creed a much better stable price flow.
Yeah, it sounds super exciting, to be honest. And you did mention it's going to be run sort of like a decentralized venture capital, and you've touched upon how the treasury will be used. I'm also curious what will be sort of the vetting process for these proposals. Say somebody has a proposal and it goes through. Is there a way for you to come in and say, look, we found something that's doesn't look right, or there's some red flags around this, and we're actually not gonna go ahead with it? And how do you make sure everything is safe and then there aren't any bad actors sort of putting, I don't know, weird proposals up for the vote?
Absolutely. Okay. I love how we're going to go into the depth of this. Right. So the initial few proposals that come forward, to achieve decentralization in its highest form, what we need to achieve over time is to not have any vetting process or any involvement from the team. So, as we have mentioned in the white paper, over time, once CreedDao has established itself as an entity, and once the Creed token finds a stable price flow, the contract will be renounced, and then the project becomes an entirely community-driven project without any interaction or any requirement from any developer team or any exterior influence. But until that stage is reached, so a point you raised is very fair, and it's a challenge for the team as well. Until the DAO is established, there needs to be a certain vetting process to make sure that uh, any project that comes to that wants to partner with Creed, or where the Creed treasury wallet is being invested to, is worthwhile of the investors as well and the holders. So that's something that we need to that needs to be considered very deeply with the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand. And I'm curious, are some team
I, I,
members
I'm so
already?
sorry. I'm so sorry. I think I just got cut off for a second. Uh, I'll just finish my answer on this.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. So there is so currently on the submission form on the DAO, we require certain criteria. For example, number one is and the topmost criteria is at least one member of the project team needs to be doxed or KYC. So that is one essential criteria. Second is the contract has to be audited. That's the second criteria, and third one being that there has to be substantial liquidity in the project. So those three conditions need to be met. Those are the highest criteria. Apart from that, like I mentioned in the initial stage, while the team vets the project, we will be in touch with one core team member of the proposed project to discuss how we can exempt the taxes to make sure that the treasury wallet can buy into the project and airdrops the tokens back to the holders of the DAO, to make sure that there's no funds burned on paying taxes, because it's a major investment going and being airdropped back to the holders. So those kind of factors will be addressed. And while there is coordination and a conversation happening between the Creed team and the proposed project team, we will be having certain discussions to make sure that everything is in place and everything is safe. So yes, there'll be a certain vetting process in the beginning, but obviously going forward, once the DAO is established, it becomes the entire community decision. As long as the votes turn in favor of the project and everything is in place, then who are we to stop the DAO or stop the holders from deciding where the money should be invested?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I completely understand. And are you looking at any projects at the moment, or have you been approached by someone saying, "Hey, look, you're doing something cool. Maybe you would like to take a look at our project and be the first one that the DAO gets involved with?" Or do you have people in the team scouting for such projects and protocols?
I that Okay. So what we have done so far is, we do have we are scouting for a few projects right now, and we have a few projects approached us already. But then again, given the sensitivity of the market, they do want to, and since we have a DAO in place as well, what we felt was what was the best course was to put it through the DAO itself, so that the holders can choose and decide for themselves. So what we're going to do is, we do have a couple of projects in mind, and we are in discussion with them. But the process will be to submit it to through the proposal form onto the DAO, and let the holders to decide for themselves if it's the right investment, or if it's the right project to move forward with, at least as a first investment.
Hmm. And with the treasury, is it gonna be held in stablecoin? Is it gonna be BNB? How are the funds gonna be managed?
As of right now, to be honest, I mean, the market's been bleeding the past couple of days, and it's just starting to recover. So right now, the idea is, since we do feel like BNB has kind of bottomed out and it should be appreciating over the course of the week, it would make sense for us to hold the treasury funds in BNB. But then that we do see a market trend that's been following for the past couple of weeks, where every weekend or Thursday onwards, leading up to Sunday, there is a bit of a crash in the market. So if that's the case, we might be converting the BNBs to BUSD or USDT, whatever that feels suitable, and hold them in stable coins. So yeah, that is an interesting point that you raised, and the team. It's a good reminder for the team as well. So yeah, that's something that we will consider, because as long as the DAO sustains on the condition that there are enough transactions that keep taking place, and the treasury wallet always accumulates enough funds. So yeah, initially at this given point, we will be making sure to be holding in BNB, and probably over the course of the week, as requirement is raised, we might convert them into stable
Hmm.
coins. Sorry.
Yeah, so I take it for now the team has access to the treasury, so you guys can actually exchange, I don't know, half of it or something if you choose to stablecoin, or I don't know, peg it to something better, or use it for liquidity mining, say, while there's no proposals out and things like that. Are you also looking at doing anything like this?
To be honest, that's not something we've considered so far, because I mean, yeah, keeping them in stablecoin is kind of a safe alternative. But then the moment you try to, stake it, or I mean, enter that the treasury wallet belongs to the community, and taking any kind of risk which might kind of depreciate the value of the treasury wallet won't be in the best interest of the project. But one important point that you addressed right now, I mean, that was a crucial point for the project as well. So currently, we are on the development of the contract. We are the final step, that is from proposal submission to voting, and then finally the investment into the proposed project, that needs to be automated through the contract as well. So until that stage is reached, yes, the team does have control of the treasury wallet to some extent. And the reason being that there need to be because it's a DAO on the BSC space, and given that we could really take advantage of the faster transactions and the cheapest transactions, we might actually look into having using the DAO for a bigger purpose than just being a venture capitalist. So, given that factor, we do feel like there might be some tweaks in the contract that might be required until it's certain that these are the functions of the DAO when it's finalized with the contract, where the team no longer has access to the treasury wallet. But until the team does have access to it, uh, the team considering to hold the tokens and stable coins is an option for the team. But then as long as the funds are safe and the team doesn't do anything which would depreciate the funds, the team would consider it.
Yeah, it sounds fair, and I can completely agree with your sentiment here because I've seen this done before with sort of I want to call it a hybrid sort of DAO to begin with because in the early stages you're not sure even exactly on what people will want to do with it. You know, what will the contract need to do and all this kind of stuff, right? So you need to kind of dial it all in, and once everything is set in stone, then of course it can be, as you've mentioned, passed on to the community, and then even small transactions. It's something as little as sending money from the treasury to I don't know, a private sale or to get an allocation. Then that would be voted on, and so on and so forth. But for now, it's actually beneficial to have that control. That's just my view. Yeah.
Absolutely, and when you're actually looking at the bigger picture right now, I mean, the biggest advantage we have as Creed DAO is, unlike other projects that promise a working DAO, Creed already has a working utility, unlike most other projects. So we do have a video that's pinned on the Creed DAO community TG, and we have tested the DAO, how the proposals and voting works, and anyone can just go and look at the video and understand how the DAO was tested, and it's ready to go live at launch. So that is a massive advantage for Creed DAO, and with the utility being ready, we can always focus on growing the community to make sure that. I mean, the focus on the development aspect is, let's suppose, 80% complete. So we have already spent the funds from the team to make sure that we reach to a certain threshold before launching. That kind of gives the investors a massive assurance as well. And even with the development in hand, we are launching at a market cap of just below 200,000, if I'm not mistaken, 180,000, given the BNB rate today. So that's kind of a massive advantage that investors coming into CreedDAO have. The utility goes live at launch. So, like you mentioned, the certain tweaks in contract that might be required on the DAO end. Obviously, the contract of the CreedDAO token itself has been audited, and it has limited control and access by the owner of the contract, in the sense that uh, there's no mint function. Trading cannot be halted. The taxes cannot be set more than 15%. So those criteria for the main token contract have been addressed, and they've been resorted by making sure that the accessibility by the owner are limited, and we have gotten audits by Solid Proof and Cyberscope. But on the aspect of the contract of the DAO, there might be just tiny tweaks here and there to make sure that everything going forward, if there are any changes required, we can adjust to them. One interesting thing that you actually addressed right now was, I mean, what is CreedDAO going to invest into? Are there going to be private sales? Are there going to be projects that need a VC coming in? Are there going to be projects that have already launched? So those are things that we need to consider moving forward as well. I mean, we do know of DAOs that are successful on the Ethereum chain, and they don't have the flexibility of doing certain things because of the high gas fees or the slow transactions. So being in the BSC space, we are able to have transactions at a much cheaper price. I mean, compared to Ethereum, the transaction cost on BSC is 1/10 of the price. So given that, we might be able to explore more options, maybe buy into launch projects as well. Even if you're paying taxes, we can compensate on the side of paying lower gas fees. But then again, it comes to a questionability of how fast are the decisions made on the DAO. I mean, given that a proposal needs to be submitted, votings need to come in, and let's suppose if you're going to take 48 to 72 hours to make a decision on if Creed is going to invest into a launch project or not, 72 hours is equivalent to 3 years in crypto space. So given that kind of time frame, we need to consider the aspects about the time, the investment coming in at the right time to make sure it's a good time to buy the token. So a lot of factors need to be considered before the entire DAO is automated.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I stopped asking people why they chose the BSC because sure it's not everyone's favorite, but it has its advantages. So having to send lots of transactions, having to send people's tokens and doing all these burns and everything, and you get to a point where the contract just interacts a lot, and if you are on one of the more pricier blockchains, it can get a little bit expensive, especially for the beginning. And also, I saw,
Absolutely.
yeah, you guys had the pre-sale on Gempad. I saw it filled, and I was curious, was there a private sale as well, or can you give us some details about this?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we did have a private sale as well. So the private sale hard cap was 60 BNB, and the public pre-sale that happened on Gempad, which was whitelisted as well, the hard cap was 300 BNB. Both the pre-sales, the private and the public, took place on Gempad itself, which means that the tokens were locked on Gempad, and we had to. So the private sale comes under the criteria of special sales on the Gempad.app website, and the public pre-sale of the 300 BNB hard cap comes under the, I think, the pre-sale launchpad criteria, on that criteria. So I mean, we were able to fill both the pre-sales in a very short period of time. So the private sale took, if I'm not mistaken, little more than a minute, which is which is credible for a private sale. I mean, because private sales generally take a lot longer time to fill, and on the public pre-sale, if I'm not mistaken, it took close to 20 seconds. Given the fact that on Gempad you cannot snipe, so which means that all the transactions need to come through the UI itself. So the pre-sales filled very fast. I did. I mean, being a project co-founder, I was very curious to see how many more transactions did come in apart from from those who got in. So what we realized was 35% more transactions came in, and 35% of those who tried to get in couldn't actually buy because the pre-sale filled before that. So we are kind of expecting a really strong buying pressure coming in at launch. Like I mentioned, we're launching at a price, at a market cap of 180,000, with 60% of the funds that were raised from the pre-sale going into the liquidity pool. So those are the indications of the launch that's going to take place in about 30 minutes. Apart from that, on Gempad, we had done our KYC there. Like I mentioned, our contract was audited by Solid Proof and Cyberscope. We were actually upgraded to the diamond tier criteria on Gempad after they assessed the project, and they did give us that ranking on their launchpad. And we have been in discussion with the Gempad team back and forth on what's the best way to be able to penetrate and make sure that we have a good awareness in the market. So actually, the plan was to launch yesterday right after pre-sale, because uh, it's very important to know for any project that's about to have a pre-sale and if they have a quick fill, there is a lot of buying pressure at that given moment, because people are still regretting. I mean, those who couldn't get in are kind of remorse that they couldn't actually buy into the pre-sale. And if they do find a good entry point at launch, they're very, very likely to buy in at that given time. So that's the plan the team had in mind, to make sure that we launch right after the pre-sale concludes. But you and I both know the situation of the market yesterday. I mean, BNB touched 290, if I'm not mistaken, about 12 hours ago, which was tragic. And that's why we had to push the launch 24 hours later. And the intention was to make sure that we launch while the market is on upward trend, while the prices are on upward trend. So BNB has recovered to, I mean, close to 325, 330 since then. And that's why we decided to go ahead with the launch.
Yeah, we did have a little bit of a bloodbath yesterday, but I was gonna say we're familiar with Gempad here. That's why I asked you. And having a special sale there, and the private sale, and filling in so fast, it means something. And yeah, Gempad are pretty straightforward guys. We're also partnered with them. And also, I was going through your audit, and it looks like you guys had the audit done close to a month ago. So I'm curious, how long have you guys been planning this? When did you start first, thinking about creating CreedDao?
Right. So this has been actually going for some time now. I mean, it's been close to 2 months since we started planning on this. And the initial discussion was, how long is the DAO development going to take? Because it requires a lot of testing as well. When you have a utility that needs to go live at launch, that involves a lot of testing to make sure that everything is in place, not just the contract where the token buys and sell. You need to make sure that the proposals are coming through. Is the voting mechanism working? Once the voting mechanism, but because the requirement for the voting to for the proposal to pass includes a certain percentage of all holders voting, and even the number of percentage of votes that need to be in favor of the project. So there was a lot of testing that was involved in the process, and we also felt like with a DAO, because people are familiar with the word DAO, and but uh, there still needs to be a lot of awareness on what a DAO can do, or what the purpose of the project is. So we did spend a good amount of time creating content for the project, to making sure that we do have about 3 or 4 promotional videos. One which is kind of a trailer of the project to highlight what the purpose of Creed is. We do have another video which kind of uh, explains how the DAO works, what the requirements are, how it suffices with all the criteria that needs to be met. So yeah, I mean, we were in no rush at all to have the pre-sale or launch as soon as possible. The idea being that everything needs to be in place to make sure that we do have a smooth pre-sale and launch. And the first step was successful. The pre-sale filled in a quick time, and hopefully the launch is going to be even better today.
Yeah, it's looking good, and I was looking at the website as well, and then there's an option to connect your wallet there, so you can see your holding. You can go in and participate in the voting. So I take it this is where people will do everything, right? The voting, the proposals. This is where they'll claim their rewards, and everything will be done through this DApp that you have set up on the website, right?
Absolutely. So we do have there are 2 sections there. I would actually want to run through this. So the first one being the chosen ones, it kind of shows what your investment is, what your ranking is. Like, are you an immortal? Are you a king, or are you a seeker on the DAO? It kind of shows the eligibility of your voting or proposal rights. Also, what sort of treasury share. So let's suppose if you belong to the immortals, that means that 25% of the buy from the treasury comes back and is divided amongst all the immortals. So it kind of shows your role in the house of the creed. So that's why the chosen one comes into play. The house of the creed is where the proposals are submitted, where the proposals can be viewed. So you have the proposals as one heading there, where you see all the proposals. You'll actually see one right now which says CreedDao AMA Test. So that's the video we created to show that how the proposal and voting works. And then you have a submit proposal section where you can submit a proposal if you're an immortal or a king holding 5 million or more tokens. The requirement is you need to enter your project name, contract address, a quick description of the project, social links, audit links, website, white paper links. So you can, if you are eligible to submit a proposal, you can add in all the information here, and be able to submit a proposal. For everyone who's listening into this AMA, once you get the time, once you're done with this AMA, please do check the manifesto out. That's the white paper, and it's very interesting because we've gone into detail about what is wrong with centralization and how we're trying to combat it. I mean, since we have time, I'm just going to address why the team is combating centralization, what the purpose is. So, like I mentioned, on the manifesto part section in the CreedDao.io website, just going we have gone to details of the flaws of centralization and how Creed will take stand against it. Uh, so just to highlight what centralization is, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone here is familiar with it, but just to quickly touch on it, centralized finance is pretty much how governments, banks, and organizations they control money. So this central authority gives control to the very few who hold power in those organizations to manipulate finance. So they have authority to print money, alternate lending and financing conditions, pretty much controlling the flow of money. So centralization has become the norm right now, and it has loads of concerns. Let's suppose trust, costly and time-consuming transactions, censorship insensitivity, tax hazards, and numerous shortcomings. So DeFi, the purpose that CreedDao is supporting, decentralized finance, is fighting against this traditional centralized control of money by disempowering this middlemen of centralized finance. So DeFi is creating a spectrum of all financial services without the need of a centralized organization. So, how CreedDao is contributing to this purpose is through its DAO, which will act as a venture capitalist and invest and empower other DeFi tokens which share the same ideology as the Creed. Like I mentioned before, the Creed funding is decentralized and decided by the holders through the DAO to fund the revolutionaries, the advocates of DeFi, and having DAOs. I mean, DAOs are at the DAOs are decentralization in its purest form, and as long as the purpose is met, as long as centralization is combated, any project can always connect with CreedDAO. So all those points are highlighted in detail on the white paper, which is under the section manifesto on the creeddao.io website. So please do check it out, and if you all have any feedback on it, you can always DM me about it.
Well, I have some feedback on it. I gotta say I like it. I love the Albert Camus quote also. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion, right? Because I'm one of
Absolutely,
these
sir.
people that have been around ever since crypto started, right? And I remember a time when some core values were very important. And nowadays, what you see is people caring if it's fast, people caring if it's making you money, and sort of kind of, I don't want to say forgotten, but maybe they're not as educated to some of these principles that we all love and how it all got started, right? And the fact that you guys have a couple of dozen pages in here in the manifesto, explaining it all, it just looks super exciting for me. And I was also curious around the proposals. Are people gonna be able to submit proposals right after launch, or when do you think your first proposals will be coming in?
People can, like I said, the DAO is going to go live at launch, which means that any holder who is holding certain amount of tokens, so the kings and the immortals, they can submit a proposal, but that's going to be a vetting process in the initial stage to make sure that the proposals being submitted are legit ones, like the concerns you raised. They are legit and they do have a good they do have a good backing to make sure it's worth the time of the DAO and to make sure it's worth voting on it and discussing with the proposed team to invest in it. So those there's going to be some sort of vetting before the proposals do pop up on the voting on the voting page. But yeah, the DAO is live. And one very interesting thing you just mentioned about is, I mean, yeah, the old school kind of beliefs and the kind of the old school beliefs and ideas people had about crypto in the past are kind of lost, which brings the question of sustainability to the space, right? I mean, you do see projects that kind of go parabolic at launch and then you have nothing else to show after that. So the point that I raised in the start, right? Why the team decided to do a DAO project and why it's more sustainable than other crypto tokens. So the reason being that a DAO is kind of self-sustainable in the aspect of marketing. Now, let's say for a project to grow, right? I mean, any project, regardless of it being a DAO project or a DeFi project, it needs to grow across different communities and grow with different communities. So that's very important, right? It's always connecting with different communities to make sure that the awareness is spread. So with the CreedDAO model or with a DAO model, and the definition we have for it. It's a decentralized venture capital system governed by the holders of Creed through a proposal and voting mechanism. So, being a venture capitalist, every time a proposal is made and votes start turning up in favor of the proposed project, you do have that proposed project community checking Creed out and assessing how and why the Creed is connecting with the proposed project. So this brings awareness and potential investors to the Creed. You could just highlight this as being unpaid marketing. So it is kind of an aspect that works for DAOs. So it is kind of a awareness platform as well. Being a DAO, you kind of have this self fulfilling prophecy of marketing that keeps taking place.
Definitely, definitely. And I see some hands have started to raise here, and I'll get to community questions in a second. What we usually ask is what are sort of your plans for the marketing going forward. But what I'm more curious about is what's going to be happening next on the roadmap. What's next on the roadmap? Are you pushing hard to get the first proposals there? Are you I don't know. What are you looking most? What are you like as project owners most excited about? What's going to be coming in the next week or month? And yeah, maybe go over briefly about the marketing strategies in the coming months and after launch. What do you have plans there?
Absolutely. So one thing that I'm personally very excited about is to make sure that we have the first proposal rolling out and achieving the first buy from Treasury Wallet as soon as possible. So a general time frame that the team has in mind for the community is to have one proposal go through every week. That's the time frame that we have for the team to make sure that there's enough accumulation from the treasury wallet. And the big and the fatter your treasury wallet is, the more you have more leverage to discuss any additional terms with the proposed project. So that kind of gives you a leverage to be in a better negotiating space. But since we are just launching, ideally, the team would love to have the first proposal coming through within the first 24 hours. Leave a gap of 24 hours for the voting to take place, and before the 72nd hour is completed since launch, that is within the first 3 days. It would be amazing if we have our first proposal go through and the first airdrop of tokens being sent back to the immortals, the kings, and the seekers. So that's something I'm personally very excited about. Apart from that, on the marketing aspect, right? So we do have, I mean, since the past a month and a half or 2 months, we have been focusing and pushing our marketing on Telegram across different communities, focusing our marketing towards Twitter and Reddit, and we have worked with a few YouTube influencers. Going after, I mean, post launch. Sorry. So prior to the pre-sale, we had a AMA with Gempad. We had a AMA with Columns. We are honored to be here having an AMA with Whalecoin Talks right now, and we will be having more AMAs with different communities because it's a good way to make sure that your ideas are shared and what your purpose is. It's a much more convenient way of communicating rather than just having pin posts up in the community. So that's something we would love to continue going forward. But post launch, the focus of the team is to make sure they'll be more inclined towards possible listing, and that's probably where we'll be spending most of the marketing budget, because more often than not it's the listings that bring in trades than promotions do. So that's something that the team would really push for, to get in maximum listings as we can as soon as possible. So we actually have confirmed one listing which will go live from 30 minutes from launch. So that's something that we already have in place. And yes, that's something we would send out to the community within 30 minutes from launch. Apart from that, down the roadmap, right, the final goal of the team uh, for CreedDao is at a certain given point, once the DAO is established and once Creed does find a stable price flow, there needs to be a time when the team is in a situation to be able to renounce the contract. So for decentralization to happen, and the entire cycle to be completed, that renounce of contract needs to be happen, and that's what we want to work towards as soon as possible, because the moment the contract is renounced, certain things will be taking place at that given point. Either the marketing taxes and liquidity taxes will be directly sent to the treasury wallet, or maybe we will scrap up the marketing and the liquidity taxes, and we'll only have treasury taxes. So certain things need to come into place. Things to just fall into place, and once we find a certain establishment, the contract is renowned. The DAO is entirely the entitlement of the DAO is given to the community. It's entirely community controlled. The holders control it. We probably have a staking platform to make sure that everything kind of goes is automated, where there's no interaction from any team member. So that's kind of the long-term vision for Creed, to be an entity by itself, which has no ownership at all. Definitely, the team will always be supporting Creed DAO and will be there to make sure that the community is handled and progresses well along with everyone that's a part of the community and the DAO. But that's kind of the long-term vision for the team, for Creed DAO to be an entity by itself without the need of any co-founders, any developers, or any team members to be running it.
Yeah, it sounds good. It got me excited. I see we got a few hands up here, so I'll start unmuting people and let's see what they have to say. Mr. Syed, you had a question for Ash here. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Acti. Okay, so I was wondering that where will the voting take place? I mean, will it be on your official website or Discord channel, and how will you make sure that the voting process is fully secured?
All right. Okay, that's a great question. So, uh, the voting is going to be on creeddao.io, and it's being run entirely on the blockchain. So there's no way anyone can really kind of overrun run the votes, overrun the proposals. It's entirely run on the blockchain. So you only have proposed. So on the DAO, we have three categories. you have the immortals who are the top 50 holders. You have the kings who hold 5 million or more tokens. You have the seekers who hold 2 million or more tokens. So the immortals and kings have proposal rights where they can submit a proposal, and the seekers, immortals, kings, all of them together can vote. The voting, like I mentioned, happens on the blockchain. There's a contract, there's a DAO contract that operates for all the votings and proposals. So there's no way that it can be kind of tampered with. So it runs on the website creeddao.io or under the section the House of the Creed. That's where the voting and proposals takes place.
Great, great. Thank you for explaining that. Moving to my next and final question. So I was going through your white paper, and you also discussed about it. It's mentioned that once the proposal is accepted by the House of the Creed, it will queue and the funds will be transferred anytime. Every time 50 BNB mark is reached. Let's suppose in a day Treasury reaches 50 BNB mark twice. So I was wondering that the holders will be distributed with the proposal project tokens twice. How will that work out?
Right. Okay. So that's a very interesting question that you just put up. So uh, what really happens in the DAO voting proposal platform is proposals can come in abundance. There's no limitations on the number of proposals that can be put forward. Uh, Votings take place, and if the proposal is accepted, it kind of goes on a first come sort of basis. Where let's suppose the proposal that is accepted first kind of is invested into, and then the next proposal, of course, which is accepted, goes through as long as there's accumulation of BNB in the treasury wallet. So in the initial stage in time, in the initial setup, what we are looking at is in the first week, probably have two proposals that will go through in the first week, and then 2 weeks, then the next week onwards, probably have one proposal that goes through. The white paper does mention. I'm glad you went through it. It's amazing to know that people are reading through it. So right now we've just kept a brief understanding of having 50 BNB in the treasury wallet, but that doesn't limit us from having proposals only for 50 BNB. I mean, if you do come forward a good proposal and we feel that, or the community feels like we could go a max of 100 or 200 BNB as well, those are kind of the parameters we can always adjust on to make sure that, okay, fine, if it looks like a good proposal, why not do 100 BNB or why not go 200 BNB, depending on how much or what sort of accumulation you have on the treasury wallet. So definitely down the line, once the DAO is established, there'll be a parameter saying that, you know what, regardless of the project that comes forward, this is what our limit is. Let it be 50, 100, whatever BNB, that's going to be the limit. But right now, it could vary depending on the requirement of the project that comes forward. So I mean, if we do have if there comes a scenario where two proposals do go through within a day, it still kind of raises a question of there are certain negotiations or discussions between the Creed team and the proposed project teams. A major discussion includes exemption of taxes for the treasury wallet to buy and then airdrops the tokens back to the holders. So that kind of might take some time. So we're looking at a proposal voting and the airdrops to come through. We're looking at a period of 72 hours, about 3 days, for the entire process to be completed.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Thank you. Over to you, Akti.
Thanks, Said, for the
Thank
amazing
you,
questions.
Syed. Let's go to Western Beast. Western Beast, you had a question? Go for it.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, actually. Ash, my questions are just direct. My first question is on your holders of your immortal token. On the holders of your immortal token. So how do you protect your holders from being centralized in one zone? Now, this is what I mean. Holders of your immortal token can actually choose to be from one particular zone. I mean, say from China or from the US, for example. Do you have a KYC for these holders? Because if they are from one zone, there's a very high chance that immortals can vote that immortals will be voting only in favor of their own geographically based projects. Do you have any way to counter this?
All right, that's an interesting question as well. Okay, so firstly, there are two parts to your question. One is, can certain nationalities are they able to KYC? That's one concern, and number two is, holders or immortals or kings, whoever, they are more inclined towards proposing for projects from their nationality. So, firstly, there is no KYC process to be an immortal or to be a king. As long as you're holding sufficient amount of tokens, you are already belonging to the criteria. Something that's important to add at this point is, once the entire DAO is automated to the process where the final transaction is also run through the DAO, for at that given point there'll be a staking contract that comes into place. So at that given time, as long as the tokens are staked, regardless of KYC, you are anyway authorized to be you're anyway authorized to have your rights as a proposal submitter, or having your voting rights. So there is no KYC process as such. And the second part being that, if I did understand the question correctly, what you meant was holders are more inclined to propose projects that favor them independently or favor them geographically. So that kind of is the decentralized right to make sure that, I mean, whatever suits a holder, that's what he's going to vote to propose towards. But we do have a criteria that recommends that, the do propose for projects that combat centralization, that supports decentralization, or that kind of is working towards is kind of working towards a noble cause. So that's the criteria that we do have for projects or proposals to be coming forward. So the initial stage, there is a vetting process which will involve the team going through the projects to make sure that they are legit and they're kind of they are worth the team, and they do have a good backing. That's what's important. So there's kind of a vetting process at the start, but going forward, once the DAO matures, once the holders mature with the DAO to understand, I mean, there needs to be a sense of community for the project, and once that is achieved, it kind of gives the DAO a purpose, and only with the purpose can it grow as a community or a DAO. I mean, if it's going to be all independent opinions and independent motives, it's very hard to make sure a project grows with it. But over time, as the DAO grows and as the community understands the purpose behind CreedDao, which is combating centralization, at that given point, it kind of all comes together where the holders too understand what the purpose is and will probably propose and vote accordingly.
How many kings can it take to vote against a project that an immortal puts? Would that be possible?
I couldn't follow your question. Could you just repeat that, please?
I asked, how many kings can it take to vote against the project of an immortal? Would that be possible? For example, say maybe 50 to 100 kings against the project of one immortal.
Oh, no. Okay, so like I mentioned, there is no so on the DAO, let's suppose on the voting platform, immortals, kings, and seekers have equal voting value. So it kind of becomes a numbers game and not kind of a voting privilege game. So let's suppose just put the numbers in perspective: 50 top holders, 200 kings, and then you have 800 seekers. So it kind of becomes a numbers game where, let's suppose you have close to 1,500 who are eligible to be a part of the DAO. Now, for a proposal to go through, 25%, so we are looking at close to about 375 holders having to vote, and then you have at least 50% of the votes in favor of the proposed project, regardless of them being immortals, kings, and seekers. So let's suppose 50%, you're looking at about 180 votes or 190 votes being in favor of the proposal. So those kind of numbers need to come in for a proposal to go through. The voting rights, the voting of the proposal to go through is a numbers game. It's not a kind of a privilege vote for a immortal is higher than a privileged vote for the kings. It's not that kind of a thing. Also, the proposal rights of kings and immortals, they can pass through as many proposals as they require. There's no limitation on that. But in the initial stage, the proposals that come through are going to be vetted by the team to make sure that they are legit. But moving forward, I do understand that once the DAO and the creed reaches a certain price point, those who have proposal rights are going to be in lesser numbers than those who have voting rights, and at that given time, they will be at their own discrepancy to have any proposals they feel they should be putting forward. So that's going to be it's going to be entirely up to them.
Great project, Professor Ash. Very detailed explanation. Over to you, Acti.
Thank you, Western Base. Love the questions.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Let's go to Venice. Venice, you had a question? Go for it.
Actually, before we take the question, I just want to remind everybody our launch is in a little less than 4 minutes. So this will be the last question I'll be taking because I would have to step out for the launch. But just to remind everybody, we are launching within the next 3 minutes. We will be starting at a market cap of 180,000. Like I mentioned, our pre-sale hard cap was 300 BNB, which filled in just just about 15 to 20 seconds. And so we'll be launching on PancakeSwap. This project is a BSC project, and looking forward to having you guys at the launch. So yeah, I'll just be taking one more question before I have to head off. I'll probably have a quick summary as well to give to the community before I'll be stepping out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Venice. Yeah, if you have a short question, go for it, and then we can. The time flies when you're having fun, sort of. So, sorry for dragging up too much. So yeah,
Not at
Venice,
all.
if you have a
I'll be
question,
here.
go for it.
Yeah, actually, I'll keep it short and ask one question. As I was going through the white paper, and you guys have immortals, kings, and seekers. Immortals are only top 50 holders. I want to know, will there be any situation where seekers can also be promoted to kings or immortals, or kings can become immortals? Like if there's a immortal holder who doesn't participate in voting actively or with other decisions for the community, then what will you do in that situation?
Okay. Okay. Interesting question. So, I'll just keep the answer very short there. So, the answer is no. The To be an immortal, you have to be a top 50 holder. To be a king, 5 million more tokens. To be a seeker, 2 million or more tokens. That's straight as that. But one thing that we are going to propose, post launch is to make sure that proposals come forward. Let's suppose, even we can combine the community or the seekers with certain immortals or kings who have proposal rights. And let's suppose every time a proposal is accepted, we might have a certain proportion of the treasury wallet, maybe a couple of BNBs or a little more than that, going to the proposer who brought a proposal in which was accepted. So let's suppose one of the kings brought a proposal in which was accepted. He might get a reward of a BNB or two, which kind of incentivizes them be involved in to be involved to bring forward a good proposal. So that's kind of something we might kind of adjust and try around with. But there is no other condition where a seeker or a king can be upgraded to an immortal or other way around. It's entirely based on the number of tokens you're holding.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question.
All right, thank you for Professor Ash for being here. I realize you have to jump off. If you want to give a quick summary or any parting thoughts, please do so before you jump out here.
Absolutely. I'm going to take less than a minute for this. All right. So, all right. Thanks for having me here once again. It was delightful to be here. A quick summary. So, the CreedDao was born to combat centralization using its DAO to unite DeFi projects in the crypto space. The CreedDao is a decentralized venture capitalist governed by the holders through a proposal and voting mechanism. The DAO, like I mentioned, is already live. It will go live at launch. The holders categorized into three rankings, which are immortals, kings, and seekers. The proposal passes when 25% of the votes are in favor of 25% of all holders vote on the proposal, and 50% of the votes are in favor of the proposed project. There's a buyback mechanism where 80% of the proposed funds go into the proposed project, and 20% are used to buy back into Creed and burn the tokens. That's pretty much a very short summary. I really have to step off right now because we're launching in less than a minute. Thanks for having me here once again. Enjoyed every minute of it.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Ash. Yeah, I'll wrap this up and I'll send over some copies of the recordings as well. And good luck with the launch. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Cheers.